Hi, everybody. How you doing? I'm Sean Fitzpatrick, Chief Marketing Officer at Overit. We're a full-service agency in the Northeast, and you are at a webinar about AI SEO that we called Search Everywhere Optimization. You're also at the first episode of a new podcast that we're launching at Overit, which is called the Get Overit Marketing Podcast. So you get 2 for 1. You thought it was just a webinar, but now you're a live audience for a podcast. Wanted to get that intro in there. I'm here with 2 wicked smart SEOs. I've got Chris Boggs, SEO strategist, and Dan O'Leary, SEO strategist. And we're going to be talking about this topic that a lot of clients have been asking us about, which is how can I adapt my SEO programs for all of these new tools? So we were answering questions on all these phone calls and meetings, and we said, let's pull together the webinar and talk about it. And I just want to start out of the gate and be clear. We're going to be talking a lot about SEO, and we've even asked ourselves, so what's the difference? And the fact is, there are a lot of overlaps. Just to be transparent. But the question is, where do you put your priority attention? Where do you put the weight of your team's time? And it looks a little bit different. Same techniques, but you're kind of doing things in different ways. And there is a little technical secret sauce in there that we're going to get to as well. You can ask questions. So you're looking at a web page now with a video window in it, and there should be a chat box right to your right. Ask questions. We're trying to do a tight 30. But if we can get to questions at the end, we will, or we'll just email you back because we have everybody's contact info. And I would say we want to keep this tight to 30. I hope you've got your microwave entree all heated up, or it's got a hot summer. It's a nice sandwich. You can chew, you can slurp because nobody can hear you. And we're going to get right down into it. So Chris and Dan, thank you for coming. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And I guess I want to start and say, what are we talking about here? Because I have seen about 200 million LinkedIn posts that are calling this practice a different thing. And so, Dan, what are your favorite pet terms to call this SEO for AI?
The first ones I came across just called it like AIO or AI optimization or AI SEO, just kind of compounding them. Those are the ones that I first started seeing.
Yeah. And you had actually taught me about, well, let's just call it Search Everywhere Optimization, because then we don't need to change the acronym. We can keep saying SEO, but it has a bigger meaning. Maybe that'll catch on. Chris, what are your favorite terms?
I guess my OG term was GEO.
Yeah, that's the one that the horse you're betting on.
Gen AI optimization. But GEO seems to be one of the big ones.
Yeah,
so
we're going to be referring to it by a bunch of names here, probably AI SEO a lot. And so just fasten your seatbelts and be flexible about the terms. So we're going to talk about how AI is changing the landscape now for search. And so the first piece is, and Chris, you have stats about this, declining website traffic from Google. So talk about the numbers on this. What are we looking at as far as changing patterns?
Well, SimilarWeb says 25% drop off or 26% drop off year over year in the first quarter for Google referral traffic to websites. I want to be clear, that's not all AI.
Okay.
Certainly part of that has to do with Google and the shape of their search results, which I know Dan is going to walk us through here in a minute.
Yeah. Okay. So, a lot of marketers are really freaked out about these traffic changes, but hopefully there's a silver lining here where it can enhance your quality traffic, and we can talk about that more a little bit later. So, Dan, we've got a search engine result here, and if you could just kind of talk about, we've all experienced this, but how is it different from how it used to be?
Yeah. So we've got what is a hybrid car? It's a pretty traditional upper funnel informational query. And what you're seeing in the search results is you get the AI overview up at the top. It comes with a little bit of some links there. You get the people also ask, you get short videos, you get long videos. Down at the bottom, you're going to get another frequently people also search for. To Chris's point, this is not just the AIs. Even before this, Google was integrating and stacking in their universal search results extra features, right?
Yeah.
And they're all designed basically because, Google has long viewed websites as a necessary friction, but they've been looking for ways to, why do we need to send them to the website when we can just extract the information and place it right in the search result and keep them in that ecosystem?
Yeah.
So this is just a new reality that marketers face.
The zero-click reality. Chris,
that's right.
else?
Zero-click searches. I mean, that's what is happening, and that's why that traffic is dropping.
And I know I love it myself. I ask so many questions to search every day in ChatGPT, and it's really nice to just get that synthesized answer. So I'm on board.
As marketers, we're worried, but be honest with yourself. As users, it's easier,
Yeah,
and
it's awesome.
it is more frictionless, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is all driven by changes in the tooling, right? So AI tools are reshaping search. There are new tools, and a lot of people are using them. So Dan, what are all these new tools people are using?
So obviously, ChatGPT, I think, is the one that came roaring out of the gate that everyone is most familiar with. They certainly were not actually the first, but they were perhaps the most prominent early on in terms of reputation. But you've got GPT, you've got Perplexity, you've got Claude, you've got Gemini, which is Google's product, and you have Copilot, which is Bing's, Microsoft's particular product. There will be, of course, more. We could probably expect some mergers, acquisitions, maybe one failure, another startup. This ecosystem is still coalescing, but we at least right now have at least 6, 7, 8 distinct agents that you might see in your GA4 reports.
Yeah. And how many people are using them?
Well, 100 million a week. And what we can see is these AI tools are definitely having a halo effect. Bing has for a long time been known for any like search SEO geeks out there as sort of the one that's always trying to catch up. Third brand, right. So their 9% increase in Bing search thanks to Copilot, really. I mean, a lot of people are using Copilot, and now people therefore are also using Bing search. So that's one of the reasons Google's trying to catch up and provide a better AI product within its search.
Okay. So big change in all these tools, a lot of usage on the tools, and it's changing search behaviors, right? So that takes us to the next piece. Search is now conversational and contextual. And so, Dan, what does this mean, contextual? It's the technical piece, right?
Yeah. So it's not keywords in a silo. It's not a one-off search. It's very likely and probable that two different users interacting with an AI and asking and kind of, interacting with it, asking similar questions may fundamentally get different results or answers based on the prior interactions that they had with that.
So
now, Google has also sort of personalized your search results if you've been logged in and you've been, it kind of remembers your cookie, right? There's been degrees of personalization, but this is now taking it to the nth degree where the AI has a memory state and it, like a real person, as you interact with it more, it develops a more robust sense of you and customizes and contextualizes the results accordingly.
Yeah. And it's stuff that I know gets a lot of my friends and family nervous, but it's also really good from a user perspective. So what about the conversational piece?
Well, it's conversational, right?
Yeah.
Gen Z, over 50% of Gen Z likes to use AI chatbots. They have no desire to type into search engines. Why would they? It'd be like us using encyclopedias, right? 8.4 billion voice assistants is in use. That's including all our phones, obviously. And this is the key part, is 65% of voice searches are phrased conversationally. People have just naturally evolved from sort of the, what was your example?
Just putting out a phrase, master's degree.
Master's degree, exactly. And so that's just, I guess in a sense, as usual, the children are benefiting from sort of an evolution, and it's going to be easier for them to get information because they're growing up with this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about query lengths just really quick.
Yeah.
So SEOs have long distinguished between short tail, mid tail, long tail type of searches. This is nothing new. But long tail, even in SEO, until fairly recently, still implied maybe 5, 7 words, right?
Yeah.
Conversational queries are 7 minimum, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 plus words. Query lengths of that long have jumped up 200, 300% in the last year. So you're certainly going to be, we're going to talk about stop chasing keywords. When query lengths become 15 words long, they become very difficult to fundamentally predict and track. There's going to be way too many variants of that. So you're going to have to really get down to user intent rather than any one particular manifestation of that intent as expressed through this keyword or that keyword.
Yeah. And I know for me, I take about a minute sometimes to ask ChatGPT questions just to make sure I don't leave any details out. So there are the trends. Things are really changing in search. People are using a lot of tools. Their behaviors are changing. And so now, what are you going to do about it, right? And so we have the top 5 things now that you can do to optimize your website for AI search and really your brand for AI search. So here they are, just to read them off to you, and we're going to dig deep on this. Number 1, focus on your authority topics. Number 2, write clear, helpful content. That's, an old school approach that's alive again today. Number 3, get conversational. Number 4, rock the schema. And finally, number 5, be present where AI seeks answers, right? And so we're going to give you some insights into these and also some hacks that you can just get rolling on this summer. And if you want some help, we'll also talk about how we can give you a boost to push you forward. But first, let's get into focus on your authority topic. So this is really about, Chris, that pursue those clicks that you really deserve that are in your expertise area. Can you talk more about that authority topics?
Right. Well, I think for a long period of time, people have been adding a lot of content to their websites in order to appease some sort of perceived, search engine need for more content, even if it's 5 or 6 degrees of separation
Highly
thematically
tangential.
away, right? So really, it's about doing better with your authority topics and rewriting pages that have done well and that your audience engages with and gives them helpful, useful advice. And that's what we're going to talk about, in the content part of this. But in order to set that up properly, you got to focus on trying not to boil the ocean, really.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And so we've got this diagram here. A lot of people know this, the funnel, right? Tofu, it's not just something delicious to eat, top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. And so you guys are recommending that content marketers stop pursuing those really high volume keywords and focus on those areas of expertise around the middle of funnel and the bottom of the funnel. Right, Dan?
Yeah, the middle of funnel and bottom of funnel content is fundamentally going to be things that an AI is less good at in terms of just like generalizing details and summarizing information. It's going to be providing real world considerations and factors that can't be generalized and that are more impactful on a user's actual buying decisions or conversion decisions. Let's not even say buying, conversion-based decisions, right? So these are things that are going to be like case studies, testimonials, reviews,
Yeah.
right? These are all, they've already had their part in the SEO place ecosystem, but they weren't maybe necessarily the top of funnel blog article that, we're chasing a keyword that has like 10,000 searches. You're not going to be able to cast the wide net up at the top of the funnel anymore. So you're going to have to be far more precise and use a harpoon, if you will, in the middle of funnel and the bottom of the funnel.
Okay, and we've got some samples here to look at, but what I've understood from you guys is you'll get fewer click-throughs to your site, but you'll know that they're qualified,
Right.
which is the silver lining, right?
We've seen the conversion rates are higher already. Organic search was, in my opinion, other than like a well-optimized paid search campaign, organic search has traditionally delivered a very strong conversion rate. But when we look at the LLMs and the AIs, they're right now not sending anywhere near as much traffic as you've used to seeing from organic search, but already out of the gate, those people are fundamentally, they are not window shoppers, they are buyers.
Yeah. And think about it this way, too. The bottom of the funnel can be more lucrative because it'll bring a nice path. You have to be honest with yourself, right, as to what you should rank for. So think about that truthfully. And if you're a lawyer that's in Boynton Beach, Florida, and your specialty is malpractice insurance law, don't just target lawyer in Boynton Beach, right? Target and create content around malpractice insurance and create connections with your content to other websites. And we'll talk about the rest of that here shortly.
Okay, that's great. And we've got some samples here on this as far as like what is a top of funnel search. We've got what does a nurse do? And this looks a lot like the first search we showed earlier. It's the AI overview, right, Dan?
AI overview. You are going to see some blue links. We saw some forums in there, also forum threads. We'll kind of talk about it in a little bit. And then the people also search for, right? But there's going to be probably for query like this, less content that is super personalized or contextualized or is giving those considerations or factors that's going to make you immediately want to make a conversion. We're going to have to go farther down the funnel.
Yeah, and a lot of even the organic links are these aggregator sites. Then middle of the funnel, the question, how do you become a nurse?
Yeah.
This gets more actionable, right?
Yeah, we start to get a little bit more actionable. You can see the breaking down step by steps there. So it's not just an AI overview, it's driven by steps. You get videos, and then again, probably down at the bottom. Now we see a little bit more blue links. So you're going to actually find some websites.
That's right. Jersey College was in there. There you go, Jersey College. You were on that search nationally.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then finally, so the bottom of the funnel, what are the best nursing schools in Maryland? This is really where we should be competing.
Yeah, and now you're going to be getting content that, again, it's not easy for an AI to just generalize. It's going to be local relevancy, right? So they actually have to be schools in Maryland. And then you can see they're also pulling, we saw from at the bottom there very quickly, some of the, you just mentioned those aggregator sites, right?
Yeah.
So we're finding individual colleges are popping in there, but also like, a US and News and World Report. those types of websites, those are popping into there as well. And those are places we're going to tease when we talk about syndicating your content.
Okay.
Right?
One
Cool.
thing I would add about that SERP is, as Dan mentioned, here we're getting into where this is a type of search where you can really see the search results and how they've influenced the AI results, right? Because a lot of times the AI results, including either the AI overview or the things also, wwhatever.
People also ask.
No. There's another things to know, which is where AI can also come under. And those come from those blue links, right? And so you start to see a bit of a circularity
So
there, and it refocuses
an
the
ecosystem.
importance
Yeah.
of ranking in Google, in a sense, right? And
Snake
in other
swallowing
search
its own
engines.
tail.
Yeah. Okay. Ouroboros. I learned that word recently. So moving on to number 2. So that was about authority. The next piece is about, and what's the matter with this, right? Clear, helpful, trustworthy content. So Chris, talk more about the, and I've said EEAT to you the other day, and you were like, but talk about how the old school is now the new school.
Well, EEAT as a concept, as to how to create content for SEO, it's not an algorithm, as most people know, right? But it's still very useful, and I was teaching it before it became a deal. When the Quality Raters guidelines came out, I was teaching it at NYU at some blogger course. EAT was the original one, right? Expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, and now it's also experience. So those align nicely with this guidance, right? And really with what we've been talking about already to some degree, is that you have to create content that's very clear and specific to your topic, that's helpful, not just like another French onion soup recipe, right? And then trustworthy. And we're going to talk about all three of those areas. But, helpful is the key there, right? And the trustworthy, Dan, I'd love for you to cover that. But, the helpful is very important. Because if it's not helpful, AI and other locations can see it. If it's helpful, you're going to end up having it in other places like YouTube. It's going to be picked up. It's going to be mentioned. It's going to be linked. There's going to be plenty of signals to a machine that it's helpful, right? And so trustworthy kind of ties in a little bit to that too.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we can always go back to like links. Google has, long used links as a proxy, if you will, for like trust and authority. But we've also talked about like credentialing, right? Old school things like if you're a member of a professional association or accrediting organization, if you've won best of blank in your local newspaper for that service you provide, right? If you have great Better Business Bureau type of reviews, all of those things are different trust signals that not only are like machine friendly, but they're fundamentally human friendly as well, right? When we see them, we know that this is a organization that I can trust because they're being vouched for by other types of micro-credentialing kind of bodies.
Yeah, so I want to flag that, I guess it's not a hack, it's a practice, but these tangible things that the folks here, which camera am I looking at, can do just tomorrow. And so like you're saying, one of them is you won an award, put it up and have the right link to it, have the right metadata behind it. What are some other hacks as far as establishing that trustworthy authority?
I think, again, like, we're going to talk about like authors and authorship, author bylines and bios.
So a real person wrote this.
Yeah, a real person wrote this, and here's their particular background and experience. So again, author bio pages, these are not anything like new, but maybe they have gotten a little dusty, or maybe the reason that you've created them in the first place was, well, I was trying to do this or that, right? Don't write them for machines anymore. Think, if you're a real person, what would I want to read about this person and their story to fundamentally connect and trust them?
Yeah. I know you're going to be presenting some of this content at a conference coming up. And I remember reading from one of your slides, one of the keys in this was making the content skimmable and conversational, right? That's another part of this too. Is
the helpful part, right?
And it'll lead into the conversational in a minute, but the skimmable and the shareable and the conversational part is what gets that trustworthy ball moving too, right? Because the more someone talks about it and the more in their language it is, the more likely it
feels real and not SEO optimized. Even as SEOs, we just often come across an article or a link that we're hoping was useful, and then we even ourselves say, gosh darn it, the SEOs got here and they just keyword spam this. And there's no real value. So you said about being honest, and you talked about being helpful. Unique value add. Again, it's not a new phrase, but if there are 20 blog posts all about the same thing and yours is one of the 20, what is your secret sauce to differentiate it? If there's no fundamental reason that yours is really truly any better, and you have to be brutally honest with yourself, is it truly better than everything else? Then you need to think, where can I provide utility? Even if it's just like one small little thing, a local factor, a pricing variable no one else is talking about when giving quotes, right? Things that you've seen out in the wild on your projects, your timelines, your processes, right? You all have probably in your organization, in your CRM, unique data. Tap into it, give first party data insights about what you're seeing on the ground.
All right. So that's number 2. We got to keep rocking here, but writing that clear, helpful, trustworthy content. And we're happy to answer some questions on that. Going on to the third one, get conversational. And this is based on what we were talking about earlier, is that basically everybody's doing conversational searches. So you need to develop content that's conversational. And so, Chris, you have a favorite, I guess, medium or hack or content.
Yeah, the hack is, I'll give it to you 1 second, but the key element of this, right, and we've been hinting around it, is getting conversational helps you build authority by expanding your presence, right, beyond not only your own social media channels or YouTube and so forth, but to others. That and that's kind of the value of this, right? Mm-hmm. And that, to me, getting conversational is led by video, right? Okay. And these days, that's the hack. If you're not doing video, you're hurting yourself, right? I recently looked at a website. It was a B2B type of a website, but they had these amazing videos on their YouTube channel showing how they do, specific process with their equipment, and it's gold, right? And they could pull that content onto their website into certain categories, and so it's all about video right now. I think that's the main hack.
Right, and you were saying the other day that that's based on, in part, that video is inherently conversational, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as is what we're doing now. So even if you're not watching a video,
so do webinars,
podcasts, anything that's multimedia driven, multimodal, right?
Yeah.
We have to break down the tyranny of the written word. Not everything needs to be a 1,000 word blog post. Like, it's just, people prefer this because they can listen to it. They can have it sort of like in the background. I know many of us probably just listen to podcasts or videos like in our car, where you could be watching it, but if it's a well-produced one, you can just also listen to it as if it's like an old school radio show, right?
So that means ChatGPT is listening now, right?
Yeah. Maybe.
The other piece, and I love this, it might be a little bit old school, but I love FAQs, right? But there's a way to do FAQs, and this is a specific tip, and it's not just, Chris, you were saying, don't just do that one FAQ page for everything on the website. Get a little more contextual. So could you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of sites have started to do this, but sprinkling your FAQs to make them actually relevant to the page that they're on, right? Versus throwing all your FAQs somewhere on an FAQ tab, but having a page about product Y or service Z, and there's no FAQs right there, right? So they can still be useful, and then they can also feed the schema, which we'll talk about. But by all means, we don't want to lose track of FAQs because they're helpful in a lot of cases.
When you think of FAQs or videos, think of them as modular components. They can all be built into a web page that addresses a topic. So you don't need an FAQ page or only a video page and then only a blog post. You can have all of these things built into there. There is truly nothing worse than going to an FAQ page for a website where they try to answer every possible question, all 50 of them unorganized with no categories. And my question is the 49th in the list, right?
Yeah.
That is awful.
Yeah, that's always, I'm always 49th. Okay, we're going to keep rocking on. I'm watching the clock here, and we're going to rock the schema. So this is highly technical, and I talked to these guys about trying to keep it as usable as possible. So I'm going to define it first. So schema is this part of the code. It's behind the page, and it's a way of labeling or tagging each chunk of content to clarify exactly what is that chunk of content. And so search engines and these AI tools can look right at the page, and they really understand the structure of the page and the context. How did I do, Dan?
That's a pretty good start. It's certainly, there is schema that is applicable directly to the types of content that you're creating, the format fundamentally. But there's also schema that's quite broad and would be more relevant to the organization behind the content. So we're an organization or business. We have a logo. We have an address. Here are our social media profiles, and we'll use a same as schema to connect. There's entities and relationships that are out in the real world, and all schema is doing is creating a structured, standardized syntax to express those and communicate them to machines.
Yeah, that's great. And you were also saying different verticals have different common schema, right? So a recipe page might have a different schema jargon than a higher education degree page, yeah?
Yeah, so you've got your organizational schema that's probably relevant for everybody. You've got, if you're doing an FAQ page, you can use an FAQ schema for that particular type of content. And then the topicality, the vertical. So yes, there's recipe schemas. If you're in a creative space like art or music or film, there's schema that are relevant to that. Higher ed, healthcare, all of these verticals are going to have perhaps one or two schema types that are more relevant to them or only niche to them that others aren't going to use. So you want to find the universal, the consistent, and then the niche.
And so Chris, you were saying, I said, well, I've used Yoast, I've done schema. You said, well, it's not an on or off switch. You can do a little schema, but it's more of a spectrum, right?
Well, what we've done is we've created custom fields for custom schema for clients, right? Clients of Overit, and that allows us to basically turn off the Yoast schema, which is very basic, and then optimize it and make it better. I guess the hack here that I would recommend to people, it's kind of the circularity of this conversation, is you can use AI to research your competitor's schema.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a good competitive
because that's
piece,
what they're fundamentally good at is parsing and extracting that. So when you give them that sort of task,
they can do that. Okay, that's a good one. Okay, on to the next one. Running out of time, and I love this one. Be present where AI seeks answers, and this is, I call this the fun one because this is about good old-fashioned marketing. So this is about the fact that it's not just about your website anymore. It's taking every piece of content and syndicating it across your owned channels, right? And then trying to get onto other folks' channels, being a guest and whatnot. So it's the power of brand again. Right, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I keep harping on, right, is getting your brand out there. And that's, I think that as I'm starting to read, when I can, more, of other great expert opinions about how all this is shaping up, brand is definitely central. And at a recent conference that I spoke at, that was definitely one of the kind of key drum beats, is that you have to improve your brand, right? Because the more that your brand is recognized as an entity across different authoritative locations, the more likely you will show up in an AI result, right?
And it still works
it's
for
a very
good
easy
old-fashioned
equation.
awareness reasons. Yeah, absolutely.
Try it for some of your top competitors, and you'll be amazed at how the correlation is there.
Yeah, the days of just writing a blog post, if you build it, they will come, and hoping for Google to refer one singular place where you are, it's just not going to be as successful as those who are getting out there. So YouTube, TikTok, if you're for the younger generation, get onto mainstream video platforms, Reddit, Quora, LinkedIn, and many verticals. There are industry-specific, what I'll call aggregator sites. If you do local services, what's your reputation and visibility on Angie, Thumbtack, or Nextdoor?
And even doing PR and trade publications is back.
Yeah, PR and trade publications are back. Trade-specific podcasts are popping up, right? So you're going to want to get onto those.
Yeah. So we're running out of time. So thank you so much, Dan, Chris. And so there's a lot here. I hope that we've given you guys some actionable hacks. I guess they're not really hacks, they're practices. But if you want some help, we have an AI SEO checkup that we're providing. There's a QR code here to book a meeting with me, and I'll bring one of these wicked smart guys to it, and you can ask some questions, and we can set you up. And we've got 2 different levels of doing an AI SEO checkup, kind of entry level for a smaller site, smaller business, and more enterprise level. But Dan, if you can, in the remaining minute, just kind of say, what do you get for this checkup while people use the QR code?
We're going to be doing kind of your standard Meineke 50-point check, kind of going through a lot of the things we just talked about. So we will do, obviously, like code coverage and things like schema, seeing what you're already using, but where can we scaffold and maybe build, again, it's not an on-off switch, it's a dimmer switch. So where can we make that a little bit more robust? We're going to be looking at your content. Is it clear? Is it helpful? We're going to be brutally honest with you, whether we think it's providing that unique value add as we did.
But we'll be polite.
But we'll be polite about it, diplomatic about it, and give you practical advice, all right?
Okay.
And point to real examples for it. And then, of course, we're going to be looking at your, I'm going to call it your top topical, your content inventory. What are fundamentally the types of content do you have? If you only have blog posts, if you only have, again, the written word, where are ways that we can sort of expand you into this new like multimedia, multimodal world?
Cool. So there it is. I think we're right at time.
Quick thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is part Dan or my brain. This isn't just pushing a button, right?
Yeah.
This is the
That's
key
right.
thing
So it's
about
not just
this,
publishing
yeah.
analytics, though we
Yeah.
did get some cool tools that you guys are using. It's
Yeah.
also about the human assessment.
Yeah,
And
fully
I asked,
automated tools have their place, but again, the carpenter is not the hammer. You need a person with experience to interpret and, again, contextualize what the tool says.
thanks everybody. Sean Fitzpatrick, Dan O'Leary, Chris Boggs, Overit. We'll see you next time, and follow up if you have any questions. Thanks very much. Have a good one.